Okay, so thank you everyone for joining for today's town hall. And I would like to just take this opportunity quickly to briefly update about what's happening on our campus with regards to service learning during this academic year. Obviously, this academic year has been very unique, very challenging in a lot of ways. It started in the spring quarter last year. And at least for this quarter, at least we were prepared, a little bit more prepared than we were in the spring quarter. So I just want to give some quick update on what we are doing on the service learning front. So I'm Anurag Pandey. I'm professor of civil engineering, and I also serve as the role of faculty liaison for service learning. And in this role, I'm supported by academic programs and planning, basically led by Bruno Gibberty at our campus, and then a Center for Service in Action at the Division of Student Affairs, which is led by Jason Mockford and Brad Kiker. And Jason, I know, is on the call, and then obviously you heard from Brad earlier. So I want to acknowledge their role in service learning that goes on into this campus. So for this year, what we are doing is one of the big thing that we are taking on is with the support from the Chancellor's Office. We are identifying all the courses that have community engaged learning attribute process. So with the help of Chancellor's Office, we are implementing a pilot process to identifying all service learning and community engaged courses. And we plan to roll this out in the spring quarter. So during sometime early in the winter quarter, I'll reach out to faculty at Cal Poly with a 15-minute tool, a survey tool, through which you can self-evaluate your courses on where they fit into and how many of the essential elements of service learning do they capture. And some of those essential elements include reciprocal partnerships, student community involvement, academically relevant community involvement, and then explicit civic learning goals. So I'll have more to talk about this in the early winter quarter. So I want to make sure that I want to update that. And then for this year, what we are doing with our faculty fellows program, that's an annual program where we have traditionally used it to develop service learning courses. But this year we are launching a retooled program that has two different focus areas. One is on pedagogy, and this quarterly town hall is part of that. We are basically having our faculty fellows for this year come out and talk about how they're doing service learning in a virtual fashion, in a virtual mode. So we'll hear from our service learning faculty fellows for this year briefly. And then we'll also have a service learning faculty fellows program that is more dedicated towards scholarship and research. And this is a new initiative because we only have, we're not able to do a lot of our traditional service learning activities that involve some travel and some, maybe 5 or 6 different new courses being developed. And because we're not doing that, we have sort of a pilot initiative that we're launching with Office of Research and Economic Development. So they are supporting some of our effort. And we are going to establish a faculty learning community that will develop some research proposals that have a significant community engagement pieces to them. So if you're a Cal Poly faculty, be on the lookout for that early winter quarter. I'm still working on the details of the program with the Office of Research and Economic Development and hope to have that hashed out. And by the time we come back for the winter quarter, I should have some announcement for faculty to apply to be part of that faculty learning community. And unless you think that I'm doing a bait and switch and basically talking on and on about the service learning program at Cal Poly, without further ado, what I want to do is I want to introduce our speakers for today, because that's what you're here for. And you don't want to hear me go on and on about what wonderful things we're doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly introduce today's speaker, both of them, and then we'll just kind of hear from Karen first. But let me first introduce Dr. Sarah Bartlett. And what I learned was that she recently finished her dissertation, so I can put the doctor in front of her name now. So she's an adjunct lecturer in psychology and child development and social sciences department. She's a social worker specializing in older adults caregiving and medical social work. She has been doing service learning and psychology of aging classes for many years. And her research dissertation that she recently finished was titled Effectiveness on an Intergenerational Service Learning Program on Increasing Knowledge of Aging, Creating Attitude Change Regarding Older Adults and Reducing Ageism. And she is basically developed that dissertation out of service learning experiences in her classes. So she has been a very experienced person in the service learning area. And then this year, she discovered some things that she could do virtually. And it's been really exciting. And I'll I'll hold off on talking about that specifically because you will get to hear from her in about 20 minutes time. But our first speaker today would be Dr. Karen Munoz Christian. She's a professor of Spanish at Cal Poly. She teaches language courses as well as Latin American and Latinx literature and cultures. She has published articles on Latinx and Cuban literature and on service learning in Latinx immigrant communities. Dr. Munoz Christian received Cal Poly's Distinguished Teaching Award for 2015 and 2016. And then she's President's Award for Service Learning for Outstanding Community Collaboration in 2018. And then President's Award for Service Learning in 2008. So she's been doing service learning for a while. She's very experienced, but again, this year through some unique challenges. So she will be our first speaker who you will hear from. But I'm just gonna conclude that if you're interested in learning more about service learning, you can reach out to me at email or to Brad. My email address is on the slide here. If you wanna join the service learning listserv where we send out most announcements, and we send out very few announcements, just only the most relevant information. So if you want to sign up for the listserv, that's the URL there. I'm more active on social media than I'd like to admit. So if you want to just get some updates on service learning there, so my Twitter handle is there as well. But before I conclude, what I will do is that if you've just joined the conversation here for this town hall, please introduce yourself with a hashtag introduction in the chat box. And then if you have any questions about what I've talked about or what our speakers are going to talk about, please precede that with the hashtag question and then type in your question so that we can organize the information for the non-participants more effectively so that people who are not here right now can also learn from your questions and our responses to those questions. So without further ado, I will introduce our speakers. Brad, did you want to say something that I might have missed? If not, then I'll just give the floor to our speaker, Dr. Karen Munoz Christian.
Let's hear from our speakers.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. And I'm so happy to see everybody here. I know, Cal Poly is on the quarter system, so we're in week 10. And for anyone to show up to an extra meeting during week 10, I'm very impressed with that. And those of you who are on semesters, I mean, we're all screeching towards an end here. And so for you to take the time out this morning is very touching to me. And so I'm glad that you're here. I love meetings that have to do with service learning, and mostly I think most of us think most meetings are pretty deadly, but I don't know if your experience is like mine, where I find myself among people that I see as academic soulmates who really care about our students being engaged with the community, learning about themselves, serving and contributing to the community too. And so my long history with service learning has been one of the most gratifying parts of my academic career. And I hope that you feel the same way, at least to some extent. So what I'm going to be talking about today, and I'm going to cross my fingers about two things: that all of my links work and that my cat, who is sitting by the door of my office, doesn't begin yowling in the middle of my presentation. That could happen, and I'll let you know. It's the joys of working from home office. So I will go into my slideshow. I'm hoping that will, okay. So could somebody give me a thumbs up? Oops, I went too fast. Sorry about that. It's showing, okay. Now if I could just keep my hand off my clicker, I'll be fine. So my experiences with service learning at Cal Poly, and I've been here first as a lecturer and then as a tenure track and tenured professor since 2003. But my collaboration has been with one specific site, which is Pacheco Elementary School. It's a local Spanish-English dual immersion school that very luckily for us is quite close to the Cal Poly campus. And so I want to just very briefly tell you how I got started, our history with service learning at Pacheco. And both of my daughters attended Pacheco and went through the entire program. And when my younger daughter was in kindergarten, this was when I had just started teaching at Cal Poly, and was able to take some time to volunteer in her classroom. And I always signed on to volunteer in the Spanish language classrooms because, of course, I teach Spanish and I'm bilingual. And I noticed that in the Spanish designated classrooms at Pacheco, there were often no volunteers or maybe one occasionally, whereas the English designated classrooms were, and I don't want to offend anybody here, but we're pretty much flooded with helicopter parents who were English speakers who were not able to help in these Spanish language classrooms. And this seemed like, right off the top of my head, a serious educational inequity. And at the same time, I was teaching intermediate Spanish classes at Cal Poly, and I thought, wait a minute, I've got these students who could really use some real life experience with Spanish, better than, you know, listening to things in a lab like we used to do in those days. And so I talked to my daughter's kindergarten teacher and I said, could you use a few volunteers who know Spanish? They're not fabulous, but they're intermediate level. They're really eager to help out with these kids. The teacher embraced it, and 2004, and it's been, the history began there. So we started on a rather small level. It was just my students in that one class, but since 2004, we've expanded to, I've involved other instructors at Cal Poly to whom I'm very grateful that they've been willing to involve their students. And in any given year, yeah, in the good old days pre-COVID, we would have sometimes as many as 150 students serving in the different classrooms, different grades at Pacheco, everything preschool through, I don't think we ever sent anyone to 6th grade because our students found that kind of intimidating. But anyway, so this program has been going on for over 15 years and has had wonderful results. It's a win-win. The teachers love the help. They have Spanish speaking college students who can sit one-on-one and read with a student, or help a group of kindergartners do their art project, or just serve as role models. A number of our Latinx students are part of this, and the kids at Pacheco, particularly those from immigrant families, see these models of students who are going to college, and it's awesome. I mean, I get very excited about this, as you can probably tell. So then everything changed. And that was the slide that I moved on to before I was ready. Then COVID struck, and our typical sending our students into classrooms for very literally hands-on, very close contact with a whole bunch of little children came to a screeching halt. And so when I learned that that Pacheco and all of the other elementary schools in our school district were going to be involved doing virtual learning for at least the fall, and then we didn't know beyond that, my first thought was, oh my gosh, first of all, we have everybody having to pivot to this teaching modality that nobody wants to do. We've got all these children who may or may not have access to technology, may or may not have any supervision at home to keep them on track with what are going to be these massive Zoom classrooms. How can we serve? How can we help? Because our students don't have anywhere out to go out to help. And so during the summer, I started a conversation with the principal of Pacheco, and Brad also participated in that with me, to find out if we could figure out ways to involve our students in some sort of service learning in this virtual world we were living in. And one of the things that's really exciting to me is the enthusiasm that immediately came from the Pacheco principal and the teachers that I spoke with, that we could make this work somehow. And in this sense, I think the fact that we have this long-standing relationship with Pacheco, and I mean, I know all these teachers personally and communicate with them every quarter. And so I think there was an element of trust there that we would try to do the best that we could in order to help and not create any kind of a hindrance for their teachers as well. So what we came up with was having our students serve as classroom assistants in this teacher's Zoom sessions. And so this, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a shot of a Pacheco class, but I'm looking at this classroom and it looks a lot like the classrooms at Pacheco. And so we're able to place students as these joining Zoom meetings in, let's see, a second grade, third grade, and fifth grade. Those were the teachers who expressed interest, and the English Learners Homework Club, and our students work as tutors, as one-on-one as often as possible, but also through a Zoom setting with the homework club that particularly focuses on the English learners at Pacheco. And so I'm not certain how interesting this document is going to be that I'll show you, but I'll just show you this really quickly, what we created for our volunteer sign up. And this was students from intermediate Spanish classes and an advanced Spanish conversation class. So we'll see if the document comes up. Like I said, this is not exciting, but just to give you ideas. So we created a Google Doc where the teachers' names and then the specific hours of each day that they wanted volunteers with spaces for however many students. And then we let our students sign up. And the good thing about this, of course, is that it's always live. The students and the teachers have a link to it and can edit as needed, add names, remove names, and so on. And so this is how we have carried out the sign up for that. The other way that we got involved with Pacheco, and this, I mean, I love both, all of the things that we're doing, but I think this one is just really cool. We also, we had, oh dear, there I went ahead, sorry. We had been working with the librarian at Pacheco last year to have our students go out and join class library sessions where they would read stories to the students. Of course, that came to an end as well. And so I began conversations with the librarian to see if there were anything our students could do. And between her and the principal, the idea of creating videos, read-aloud videos, as they call them, for the library with books that the librarian would choose that she knew were books that the students enjoyed, the Pacheco students, and that they would enjoy watching videos of Cal Poly students reading these books. So one of our professors who teaches advanced Spanish composition and Latin American literature took on this project with her students, and the results have been fabulous. I won't show you one of the videos, but I will, if I can link to, the professor created a website. As you can see, she says this project was done by students at California Polytechnic, etc.
Just can I bother you for just 1 second? So
Sure.
we only see the PowerPoint. We don't see anything that goes out from the PowerPoint because I think that's the only thing that's being shared. So we couldn't see the Google Doc or this site here.
Okay,
so
let's see. So should, do you know
maybe
if
at the end of the talk, you can show them both.
Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, because I know that time is running short too. So my apologies about that. Yeah, I think I know what happened with that. But in any case, her students have made altogether, I think, 15 videos of them reading books out loud to the kids, and the videos are all on a website now that the librarian can access, and I assume she's giving access to parents or kids so that they can then hear these books read aloud. So that was a totally new idea that we had this year, and I'm really excited about that we were able to do that. So I think I'll stop now. I don't want to take too much of Sarah's time, but I feel we'll have conversations at the end of this quarter with the teachers, with the librarian, with the principal, probably some tweaking that's going to need to be done. There have been all kinds of Zoom glitches along the way, but I feel really optimistic that if virtual learning continues, we may be able to continue this and continue our collaboration with Pacheco, no matter what the modality of teaching is. So with that, I will close and tell you all, thank you very much.
Erin, while you have the screen, could you show us, could you share your Google Sheet real quick? And also that web portal, because we couldn't quite see it.
Yes. Let me see if I'm able to do that. Okay. What I'll do, hold on. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the screen share, but choose that. Oh, okay, there we go. Perfect. Yeah, so this is the website by my colleague whose students are doing the read aloud videos. And so here's an example, las jirafas no pueden bailar, and this is the video by the students, mi dragón y yo, and again, a video with the student reading, and so Nadarin, Olivia, and so on. So that's, yeah, that's what the website looks like with access to the videos. And Anurag, I think in the interest of time, I'm not going to show the spreadsheet because, like I said, it's not particularly interesting. And if anyone wants to see how we set that up, they can certainly communicate with me.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Sarah, you want to take it away?
Sure, be happy to. And Karen, it was so great to hear you talk about all that. I don't know if you know this, but I have one Pacheco graduate child and one in second grade there now. And I didn't know about the recorded read-alongs. It would really help me with being a work-at-home mom during COVID if I knew that. So I will search those out. That's great.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Danielle Clark, the librarian, has made those universally available, but you could certainly email her and we can find out if the students can get access, because that's great to know. We'll make more videos then. Good to know.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely seen the incredible power of having extra students in the classroom. So thank you for that. So hi everyone, I'm Sarah Bartlett. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Can you all hear me okay? Just making sure. Okay, obviously Karen could hear me, so hopefully you all could. I'm gonna just share my screen and go through some slides about intergenerational service learning. So kind of a little different take on this. So let me just send. All right, can everybody see that? All right, great. So I'm an adjunct lecturer at Cal Poly. I've been with the social sciences department actually since 2012, and then started in the psychology and child development department a couple years after that. And the service learning I do is in the psychology department. And I've been doing that since pretty much I started. And I'm also a social worker. So that's kind of how I got into the whole avenue of service learning, is not even necessarily at first understanding its pedagogical influence, but mostly because I wanted to merge my two interests, which were teaching and then also helping older adults in the community, excuse me. And so the class that I teach is Psychology of Aging, and it's a major course and also a GE course. And so it's always been really interesting to try to figure out how to make an impact with students in learning about older adults. These are mostly juniors and seniors. So I don't know about you, but when I was 20, 21, this was just the beginning of me appreciating this population. I certainly wasn't contemplating or thinking about older adulthood myself. And so trying to sort of make an impact on that avenue. And then also, these aren't all psychology majors. I have kines students, nutrition, biology, a lot of pre-med students that are taking it for various different reasons. So trying to also make an impact in terms of psychology with students that might not have a lot of background in that. As I, kind of got further into this and got into my own graduate studies, I realized that, oh, service learning is a really effective pedagogical technique, especially in gerontology classes. So I had been doing various forms of service learning, but sort of created a more robust program to try to make an influence after that. And so what we do is we work with different populations of older adults in the community. We don't work with a lot of homebound older adults that are in their own homes, just because of the liability issues in terms of Cal Poly. You can't really sign an MOU with every individual person. And then also we have a really great nonprofit in our community, Wilshire Community Services, that has a program like that. So we work with 3 different retirement communities and then also some senior nutrition programs. So in terms of what I was doing before COVID, my sort of less intensive intergenerational service learning program, I called Meals That Connect, or the Lunch Bunch program. And it's very simple. There are different congregate dining sites throughout all counties, actually. It's a federally funded program for senior nutrition. And ours here is called Meals That Connect. And I would just have students go out twice throughout the quarter and have lunch and just sit down with groups of older adults and kind of converse with people you wouldn't normally talk to and have lunch. And then I added one of our retirement communities to that. They have kind of community dining rooms, and the students would go at lunch and do the same thing. And the reason I had both was because I was trying to kind of span a wide range of socioeconomic status and race and gender, and just trying to capture as wide of a variety of older adult experiences as I could. So that's really fun, and the students really enjoy that. It's definitely not as intensive as like what Karen's doing or what I'm doing in my other program, because it really only amounts to about 2 hours per quarter, but they still pick up on some experiences from that. And then I have them write a term paper at the end of the quarter where they take, what they learned or observed from their experience and integrate it with class or textbook material. So when COVID hit in spring, this word pivot, everybody uses all the time. I had to pivot really fast because I didn't want to completely stop doing service learning, but I didn't really know how to go about doing what I had been doing. The senior nutrition program basically shut down all its congregate dining sites and went to home delivered meals only. And I thought about that, but then again, a lot of students, they weren't in the area. They couldn't go and deliver meals, or they didn't have cars. And, I was very concerned about just, older adults being such a high risk population and, transmitting COVID and all of that. So I just thought, we have to let the whole Meals That Connect thing kind of go, put that on pause for now. But how can I still have students interacting with older adults? So what I did in spring and what we're still doing now in fall is a program called Phone Friends. And what I did was I took the 3 retirement communities that we had been partnering with for a different project, which I'll talk about in a minute. And I just asked them, who are your most isolated older adults? These are not assisted living or nursing homes. These are independent living retirement communities. And so there was a lot of older adults there that were still really active in the community. I mean, these were the older adults going to every single activity that the facility would put on, and they would go out and take the bus on trips and do all these kinds of things. And so I asked them, who are the ones that are really suffering the most from these physical distance, home isolation orders? And so they came up with a list. I made a flyer and a little letter. They came up with a list, and then I just matched students in my class with the older adults that really wanted someone to talk to. And so from the students' perspective, I just asked them to call this person once to twice a week and talk with them for anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. I really let the resident set the pace. So some people wanted a lot of short little phone calls, other people wanted one long phone call. And I gave the students some conversation prompts, just kind of everyday topics, some reminiscence topics. And then also I created kind of a COVID-19 topic, kind of how do you navigate talking about what's going on right now, letting people kind of share their emotions about this, but then not, dragging it down to where it's a very sad phone call either. And so that's just basically what the activity was just calling every week and checking in, and the students would tell them about what they were doing and their majors and, their families and where they live. And then again, at the end of the quarter, they would write a term paper and kind of merge their experiences with what we'd been learning in class. So we did that in spring, and we're doing that now, and it's working out pretty well. The older adults this quarter, I actually don't have as many as I had in spring. And I think, I don't know, part of it might be that the facilities have kind of figured out ways to reintroduce some activities in a safe way. Or, there's other programs that are popping up. But I know in spring it was really vital because everybody was so scared to go anywhere. And so this was kind of the only social link that some of the older adults had. And then the other project I do is called the Lives Well Lived project. And this is our more in-depth service learning project. And what I did is I partnered with Skye Bergman, who I don't know, you can probably see her in the purple shirt kind of in the center. And she has created this wonderful documentary called Lives Well Lived. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you do. And it's a documentary about older adults that are aging successfully, that are very active and resilient, and it goes into some of their historical context. It's just an amazing film. And she actually is a professor in art and design here at Cal Poly as well. And so we partnered with each other for this project. And basically what it is we work with retirement communities. So those are the three places I told you that we already have MOUs with. And we would start, in the old days, we would start with having the students go out to the retirement community and everyone would watch the film together. So we all kind of start at the same base. And then we would match students with an older adult throughout the quarter. And they would have several sort of in-depth meetings in person at the retirement community. So these places are all very close to Cal Poly. They're within biking distance, so the students were able to get there. And they would take turns interviewing each other with questions that Sky developed for use in her film. And so the older adult would get a chance to interview the student and then vice versa. And then the student creates a memoir based on the older adult's life and presents it as a gift to them. And then this picture, kind of the last stage of this project, is a wrap party. Again, I'm so nostalgic for these days where we would gather together, we'd have food and cake, and the students would present on, what they had learned from the experience and then hand the memoir to the person that they'd been matched with. So this picture was actually the first time that we did it. We were able to rent the Cal Poly Art Gallery for our party, and that was really fun. And then in subsequent quarters, we would just have it at the retirement community, and it always worked out really well. So I took spring quarter off to from the Lives Well Lived project to kind of get my bearings, but then we didn't want to drop it completely. And so this quarter, we actually started the project virtually. And what we did was we found an organization called Senior Planet, which is a nonprofit that kind of helps older adults experience technology. So everything from tutoring and helping them with providing a really robust catalog of Zoom programming, everything from financial seminars to exercise classes, everything you can think of. So these were older adults that were already using technology before COVID. And since COVID, their membership has drastically increased because people are so isolated. And so we worked with them. We did the project pretty much the same way, just using Zoom. So the first session, we had emailed everyone an Eventbrite link and they watched the film on their own. And then we got together and discussed it and put people in breakout rooms to discuss it. And then for the wrap party, it was through Zoom and I just screen shared and the students did their presentations that way. But otherwise, it worked really well. And I thought that the virtual nature of the program would be sort of a barrier to creating these really nice relationships. But we just finished Monday, and from my initial feedback from what I've read, at least from the students, they felt they formed really close connections. So I think it worked out pretty well so far. I just have a couple of comments here, and again, because of time, I probably won't read them all, but what I was really excited to see is that students really incorporated what's going on right now with COVID-19 with the learning experience. And I almost felt a little guilty about asking students to embark on this service learning project this quarter, because I know from the past, it really stretches them and definitely stretches them outside their comfort zone. And I thought, I don't want to do anything that's going to, make them have more negative emotions than are already being brought on by the situation. But almost everyone said it was a great help to them to feel like they were able to form a new relationship, to help someone, to do something different and kind of refreshing right now. So that was a good thing to see. And then I just, in closing, I kind of wanted to just go over some of the considerations. And I think that Bradley will go over more of these, but just things to keep in mind if you're going to be doing a project like this virtually. Leave plenty of time for the MOU process. So it was pretty simple to just pivot and work with the same retirement communities. But with Senior Planet, it was a brand new MOU and they're a large corporation and it just took a long time to get through that whole process. So just to leave plenty of time for that. And that some of the language, I didn't think about it, but some of the language in our MOU, they wanted to change to reflect the virtual nature of it. So that was kind of interesting. And then I always have my students sign the university release form. So even though they're not anywhere in person, still making sure that Cal Poly is free of that liability. And Brad later told me there's a quicker way to do that through Adobe Sign, but I didn't know that. So it took me a long time to collect all those signatures. I think it took a lot more time to get it up and running in the beginning. Keeping track of students' time. Normally I use a timesheet, but there's really no one that can sign them. So it's kind of the honor system. And then just some Zoom considerations, like I asked students to record and post things to the cloud, and they didn't really have that capability. So we had to figure out different ways. Screen sharing, giving the presentations online. There were a couple little technical glitches. And then considering how I was going to offer my class. So because I have kids at home that are doing school at home, it was really important for me to teach my classes asynchronously. But I really wanted to have everyone gather for these first and last meetings. So just knowing that I couldn't demand that the students be there because it is an asynchronous class, but trying to figure out like a survey at the beginning of the quarter to find out when most people were available so that we could schedule that. And then of course, making the recording available if they couldn't make it. And then we actually work with people in all different time zones. So Senior Planet has offices all over the United States, but the chapter we happened to work with was in Colorado. And they had people logging in from New York, Wisconsin, Alaska, San Diego. So just trying to find meeting times for these live sessions that worked for everyone was a little challenging, but thank goodness New Yorkers seem to eat dinner late. So they didn't mind being ahead of us. And then just thinking about other tech issues with connection, like students' emails going into people's spam or older adults not having their voicemails set up. These were just kind of some of the challenges there. But everyone was very diligent and flexible and open-minded, and they worked their way through it. And it just seemed to work out really well in the end. So next steps, during COVID-19, I'm planning to continue both these projects. There's actually another senior technology organization that's interested in partnering with us that we might pursue. And then I think this was one of the kind of silver linings to COVID. I had always thought from kind of this microsystem perspective of helping our own community here in SLO. And I think I still want to do that when we can go back out in person, but it's been really fun to do a project like this online. And so I can see where I would keep that actually as part of my class process, even once COVID's over. So that is it. I have my contact information there if anyone has questions. I will turn it back over.
Thank you, Sarah. This was great and very informative. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box. If folks have questions, please feel free to type them in. I'll be happy to relay that to our speakers. I did want to talk about one question or one comment, or I would love for you, from you guys to hear about that, something that Sarah touched on towards the end, like how does this translate into what activities you're going to take on once the COVID is over? Like as Sarah said, like she wants to continue part of this. Karen, what aspects do you think that you picked up on during COVID times that you think that they can go on even when we go back to in-person instruction? Are there things that you wanna just kind of keep going with, or things that you're just coming up with ideas like how you can enhance your in-person things and so forth? So I would love to just hear a quick perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting question, because I think when it comes to working with elementary school kids and classes, we're just counting the days for in-person teaching to go back. And I'm sure Sarah, as a parent, could second that. And so, my guess is that, like the Pacheco teachers, the day they never have to do a Zoom class again will not come a day too soon for them. And so the idea of our students Zooming in a full class setting, I think we all want to just kind of say we've turned a corner from that, but that may not be realistic. But I think one area where we could continue to make a contribution I mean, so my hope is that our students will get to be back in the classrooms, and because they love the contact with the kids. And so the hope is to be able to go back to that. But I think this idea of making videos, I think that's something that could really continue, and we could create quite a video library for Pacheco, that not just book read alouds, but also, I don't know, our students giving mini art lessons or mini cooking lessons or mini science lessons or whatever, in Spanish. And so I think something like that we might be able to continue. And then it's something I wish we could do, but I think that liability issues make it impossible, because one thing I was going to mention is that our students have been able to join these teachers' Zoom sessions without issues of liability, largely because there's always a teacher in charge. And so you're never leaving our students alone with a kid. And so I would love for our students to be able to give more help with the families for whom all kinds of tech issues at home are more difficult. I mean, I would love for them to be able to Zoom into a family's household. But at this point, I mean, maybe Brad can speak to this, but I don't see a way that we could get around the liability with that, because that could be a huge aid, especially to the families who are not tech savvy, and the kids could really use some assistance. But anyway, that's just speculation.
This is great. Thank you. Thank you for your perspective. Brad, you want to take it away? Or
Sure.
there's some questions about the recording. Yes, we will make that recording available. So yeah, we'll definitely be able to do that. Go ahead, Brad.
Okay. I'll share now. Well, first of all, thank you, Karen and Sarah. I really appreciate your thoughtful presentations that you put together. And Sarah, especially for yours being that one with Senior Planet being an all new. I love that you distilled down all those considerations to one slide. I find that to be really pragmatic help, because this is the whole reason we wanted to theme this particular town hall for the fall quarter around, seeing Karen's about adapting and existing, and then seeing yours about developing new. And developing new is always going to have its own set of challenges. And so thank you for sharing those potential pitfalls for people, so maybe they can avoid them. So that's super helpful and pragmatic. I just wanted to go over a few things about the Center for Service and Action and how it is the other side of our academic affairs, student affairs partnership, and how here at Cal Poly, and how it is a true partnership between the two divisions when it comes to service learning. On our end, in student affairs, we are, our center is kind of the hub for all things service learning and general service. We have 4 main programs: the student-led local community service that our student leadership team develops. They are a really crack shot team of leader students who act as liaisons to nearly 100 community, nonprofit, and governmental agencies addressing different needs. We also have our alternative, and they help for students that want to come in and do service when it's not a requirement for a class on their own motivation. Alternative breaks is where we take teams of students during each academic break, winter, spring, and summer, across the country and around the world, doing amazing, intensive cultural immersion, interculturally competent types of service. And those are really wonderful learning experiences for our students. And then service learning, which of course we're here to talk about in detail today. And then we're also the supervising agency for the AmeriCorps program for San Luis Obispo and northern Santa Barbara counties for the state of California. And that's where we are placing VIP fellows in a variety of different agencies around our service area to help nonprofit and governmental agencies bolster their volunteer infrastructure. And that's what the VIP brand of this AmeriCorps is VIP, is a volunteer infrastructure project. And so that's folks completing a year of national service. It's a great gap year experience for folks between undergrad and grad, or just getting some more professional development before they head into their first career position. So service learning, again, is really connecting academic and student affairs as we develop meaningful service learning experiences for students as a high impact way of delivering our learn by doing pedagogy that we have at Cal Poly. And we believe service learning provides students an exposure to different experiences, making meaning out of their learning, diversifying their learning, and broadening their worldview, which is very hard to do at Cal Poly, which is a predominantly white institution in a very predominantly white, wealthy, regionally isolated bubble of San Luis Obispo County. So it really is on students to seek out opportunities to diversify their learning. And we believe our array of programs can really help them do that. So when it comes to service learning, we really are proud of our supportive services that we offer faculty for service learning. So if you are a faculty member at Cal Poly and you have not yet partnered with us, we'd love to hear from you. This is where we believe we can really help faculty up their game in service learning and also remain in compliance with what are the ever more strident regulations around risk management and that sort of thing. So we provide placement sessions, risk management, timekeeping, and critical reflection facilitation. So for our placement sessions, it's within the first couple of weeks, we invite the community partners that you and I have decided would be good for your students to serve at in terms of how it will fulfill the learning outcomes of your class in a meaningful way. We pay their parking, we coordinate all the logistics, and we bring them in to do sort of a dog and pony show to all of your students so they can hear straight from them on how service will take shape and form, and possibly even sign up for a slot to serve right there on the spot. So it really gets them engaged right away. We also handle all of your risk management. We make sure that all of your release of liability forms are collected and signed and on file. We make sure that the community partner agreement is, which is the MOU or working contract between the university and the agency where your students will serve, is on file. And then we also collect the certificate of liability insurance from all those agencies and make sure that their coverages are what they need to be, and that they're not expired and that kind of thing. And that's an ongoing thing we do with all of our partners. We just finished our fall campaign of getting everybody's renewed certificates on file. And so we're rolling in compliance. So this is, of course, all I should say in a non-COVID world. There are very unique situations where we might have a very small handful, less than you could count on one hand, that we're aware of in terms of our frequent flyers of faculty who are doing in person. They have to meet a very strident criteria and be approved by our emergency operations committee that is handling all of the COVID conditions and things and approvals for such field work, internships, and so on. The rest has gone virtual, and just because we're virtual doesn't mean we don't have implications of risk that we need to manage, such as Sarah alluded to in her last slide that she shared with us. We also do timekeeping. We help all of our students keep track of their time. We will collect timesheets. We will put them into a compiled report for you and get it to you by the last week of courses right before finals in time for grading, so you know who has fulfilled the learning requirement or not, or rather the service requirement or not. We have folks doing as little as 5 hours for their for the requirement for their students, and up to most of the time it's an average of 12 to 15 hours for the requirement. And then critical reflection. This is usually when all students have concluded their service so they can participate in a robust way. And then it's a member of our staff team will come in and facilitate the reflection to process what they've learned, what students have experienced, and how they feel about it. It is a way, it kind of helps culminate and bring together so that students can assimilate and apply their learning well. But it also happens that when they're out there really dealing with things that can be troubling sometimes, and they're getting exposed to things that have to do with social and community needs that maybe were precipitated by injustice or difficulties and challenges for people, they need to process through a lot of emotions. And until that happens, the learning can't happen. So learning without harm is what we hope is the outcome, along with being able to collect some strong qualitative data. And in service learning, critical reflection is often referred to as the hyphen between the two, between service and learning, and we can't get to the learning without critical reflection. So coming soon is going to be a new campus platform that is called, it'll be branded in some way, but it's by Engage with an added module called Give Pulse. It integrates with campus labs. It will be fully automating everything from timekeeping to risk management to approval of hours by our community partners who will have access to it. So stay tuned for that. It's going to streamline and systematize and automate a lot of our processes and getting away from pushing papers around, which I'm really happy about, and I'm sure you are too. And then a shameless plug, as we all know, a lot of needs that we are serving in the community through service learning and all of our other programs are often precipitated by injustice. And so 19 years ago, our students began to sort of have a groundswell outcry saying, we need help. We need to be equipped and trained in social justice issues if we're going to serve in a salient way that does not render unintentional harm, and to know how to navigate these waters effectively. And so they began the Change the Status Quo Social Justice Leadership Conference. And so a call for programs is going to be coming out for that. I would love to hear, this goes for you faculty and staff who are joining us today from other CSU campuses. I'll be using the service learning listserv through the Chancellor's office to put out that call for programs. Please consider, if you have some social justice expertise, please consider developing a proposal and join us in February. And that's it. That's the end of my part. If you have any questions for us, please get a hold of me. You have my email, and this is our website. You can access my contact information through our website as well.
And I'm just going to jump in to reiterate what I said in the chat. I have a class that started now, so I think I'll commute over to my other Zoom room. But thank you to everyone. I loved hearing, Sarah, your presentation. Thank you to Anurag and Brad for organizing this, and to everyone for taking the time to be here today. I really appreciate it. So thank you all. Have a good holiday season, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Karen, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone. So the service learning, there's a question about service learning listserv. I think I shared the information about the Cal Poly's listserv, but I think you had to talk to Judy if you want to be on the main CSU level listserv. I think Judy is the person, Judy Botello at the Chancellor's office is the person that gets you there.
Got it. Is she on this?
She's not on this call, but she's
lists somewhere that
She's not here on the call today, but I can connect you with Jeremy, right? So I can connect you.
Yes.
With Judy.
Thank you, Anurag.
Okay, I will do that.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Cool. Thanks a lot. Have a great Thanksgiving holiday, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for being here, everybody.